That did not go over well. Look at what's happening with Canada. Look at our relationship with Canada. We're driving everybody closer to China, closer to Russia, because we're Trump is
But by
going
the way,
around the world,
you sound like,
castigating every
Peter,
other country.
respectfully, you sound like such a weak leader. And you ran for president.
I'm not a.
But wait a minute. You sound like it, because to me, you ran for president before.
I never ran for president.
Well,
I ran for Senate once.
Did you think about running for president, or was there speculation or story or something like that?
Not seriously, but
Yeah.
I mean, I did run for U.S. Senate in 2010, but I didn't even win the Republican nomination. But I ran in the Republican primaries in the state of Connecticut for U.S. Senate.
Right. But to me, when I'm listening to this, and this guy's sitting there going around, presenting ideas that we've never had before. A prior guy that was in there was doing what? Nothing. When's the last time somebody?
Bad ideas?
Are you kidding me? Like, for us to be protected, and you position China in a way that people are sitting there saying, what's going to happen next with China?
We've driven people closer to China. Other countries are developing relationships with China that they didn't have. Look what's happening in South America. Look at how much more popular. They're building these deep water ports in South America so that China can trade with this continent without having to go through Long Beach or San Pedro. I mean, the United States is being pushed out, and they're going to be a lot closer to Canada. Canada is our biggest trading partner, but they're going to end up doing a lot more business with China than over
Mexico
time.
is.
Yeah, I think you truly are underestimating the amount of things that these guys have done. There's a reason why you go and CNN, when you go, well, I'll go to CNN. I mean, CNN, nobody hates Trump more than CNN. And CNN will tell you, their Democrats are not for the Democratic Party right now. They can't stand their policies. They're the worst approval rating with their own base. On the Republican side, CNN shows that people that voted for Trump are happier with him today than before. For a guy like me that I'm seeing, a guy named, Jimmy Carter gives up Panama. It's like, it's okay, let him keep it, let him take care of this. And then now he's sitting there saying, wait a minute, China can go out there and do damage to us at Panama Canal. We got to figure out a way to take control of this. Is building the relationship there for us to be protected. China's getting into Venezuela. He's coming closer to say, you can do what you want to do there. Don't touch the Western Hemisphere. I feel safer with the guy at the top that's negotiating like that. I do. And a lot of American people do as well, in many different ways. You may have your, be a little bit butthurt because of some things maybe, that didn't go your way. And I know sometimes you play the contrarian. That's kind of your shtick, that you play that role. But
financially, I've never made this much money in my life. I made so much money during the Trump presidency. So I'm not talking my book. Everything Trump is doing is making me richer, and
safer. And safer.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
you
our
don't
government.
Feel safe?
Our government.
Well, you live in Puerto Rico.
Our government is very corrupt. I mean, I know that from firsthand. I mean, we have an extremely corrupt government even today.
Go back to safer. Let's be fair and answer.
Do you feel
question.
safer?
Honestly,
I don't feel any different as far as that.
Where did you live before?
I was living in Connecticut before Trump won. I mean, I was living in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I was living in Puerto Rico during
in crime-ridden Fairfield County.
Well, I haven't lived in Fairfield County since 2017. We have a house there.
Well, then you're not everybody. You're not everybody.
That's my point.
Let me explain to you. You're not everybody, though, because the average American feels safer.
Maybe.
It's not maybe. No, it's not. You can't say maybe. Polls show that everybody in America trusts Republicans to protect the border more than Democrats.
Oh.
You live in Puerto Rico. This is pure data that's coming out from
Well, we'll
people.
see. Look, it's not like I like the Democrats. I was probably one of the biggest critics of Biden out there, more so than most Republicans. But I criticize bad policies regardless of what policy, what
You're cherry picking policy
is promoting them.
You're cherry picking policy.
No, I just
You are
cherry pick bad policy.
No, you can do that, and that's like
and I mainly focus on economic policy because that's really where my area of expertise is. And so when I see bad economic policy, and look at what the president is advocating. He wants to control credit card interest rates at 10%. When Harris talked about price controls on groceries, she's a socialist. But Donald Trump wants to control the price of credit cards, and that's not socialism. And in fact, if you look at his industrial policy, I mean, he does not want the free market to allocate capital. He wants to pick the winners and losers himself. He wants to decide what companies and what industries should get capital and then use the power of government to direct capital.
I don't know
there.
if that's fair on credit cards, because what the president did is he came out and floated that. And there was a lot of response, including here from us, that said, wait a minute, do you want to really get in and do that? But it was part of a broader narrative that he was on for that whole week about affordability, that we have to do some things for affordability for the American consumer.
Then cut government spending.
And then he backed down on the credit card stuff because he got feedback from Jamie Dimon and others like this. But guess what he forced? He forced a dialogue on the subject, and he forced a dialogue on accountability. Now, if you look at all the policies across, I'm a little shocked. I would love to hear you say, you know, on safety and the border, I think he did a good job. My area of expertise is economics. I'm really not happy about it, and I've been very vocal about it. But it's like you got to be capable of giving the credit on something that's benefiting a lot of Americans, and safety at the border and murders are down. Those are facts. Those are not. Those aren't stats that are going to get revised.
But the affordability problem is a function of the big beautiful bill. I mean, the fact that Donald Trump signed on to a legislation.
Affordability started. I got to stop you. Affordability started by your own words. What happened after COVID when the Biden administration pumped all that money in there, and
that started under Trump. Trump signed on to all the COVID bailouts and all the stimulus. The Fed slashed interest rates.
It was quadrupled under Biden. You got to be fair with that.
The same thing would have happened under Trump.
But
Trump won re-elected.
Biden was the president. It's not coulda, shoulda.
And that was
Biden was the president.
That was a lucky break for Trump, because now he could blame everything on Biden. Had Trump won, it would have been the same inflation. It was the same policies. Look at what they did with the big beautiful bill.
I don't know. I don't know why you can't balance credit with criticism on certain policies.
All they did was they cut taxes on tips, they cut taxes on overtime, cut tax on Social Security. These are highly inflationary tax cuts. They don't grow the economy. Government spending, meanwhile, increased. All of the Biden spending was preserved under Trump and increased.
It's funny.
They didn't cut. They had an opportunity to cut some of the Biden spending, and they didn't cut any of it. They increased it.
Yeah. So you know what's crazy? Like last week we had this guy on, Jared Moskowitz, who's a liberal. He's a Democrat. He's not a Trump guy. But you know what he was capable of doing? He was capable of saying, these are the things I like that he does. These are the things I'm fully against him. Okay? You lose credibility when it's like, nah, I can't give him credit here or there. For us, I sat there and I said, I don't know if I want to put the 10% credit card limit there, but I like the fact that he called Elizabeth Warren. And at least he's willing to reach to the other side of the aisle. And Elizabeth Warren's like, holy shit, he called me. What did he say? He asked me for advice. Really?
Well, I'm not going to give him credit for quoting a ridiculous proposal like government fixed price controls. But if he doesn't understand why that's a bad thing.
First time in a long time that it's good that somebody is the Epstein files. What do we call it here? The biggest flipping fumble of this administration, biggest F up on what you did. We're comfortable saying that, but you lose credibility. It's like, no. Ask how many millions of people that live by the border are happy what the hell is going on when the kids are playing outside. Go ahead and ask how they feel. Go call the people that live in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, and San Diego and ask, how do you feel when the kids are playing outside today versus a year and a half ago, 2 years ago? Ask them. Ask the stories of people that were worried about what the hell is going to happen when my wife's going to work, when my mother's going to work. See what they tell you. Not everything is money. There's a bunch of different things that you got to do. See what it looks like when he walks at a World Economic Forum. Everybody stops and is watching this guy speaking, and Newsom goes up on stage, who's going to be the candidate that's going to be opposing him on the other side, tries to make fun of his own country that he's representing. Absolutely embarrassing for somebody to go out there and do that. So for me, on the highest stage, I'm proud that he's negotiating on our behalf. I don't ever give somebody a job as an executive when you hire, and I expect 100% of perfect decisions. I don't make 100% perfect decisions when somebody listens to my company, but you're trusting my instinct. And my instinct is if I have somebody in the boardroom that's going to sit there and negotiate on my behalf, I don't think there's anybody in America that would have done a better job of negotiating on our behalf than this guy.
What is he negotiating? What are you referring to?
What is he negotiating? What is he negotiating?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
You're not following what's going on. What do you mean? What is he negotiating?
No, you tell me.
What are people listening to and watching, and they're seeing others, under every single one, under every one of these guys.
Are you talking about trade deals that you think he's negotiating?
What? So you're saying you're saying Biden negotiated better? You're saying Obama negotiated better with Iran?
We don't need to negotiate.
You think Biden or Obama negotiated better with Venezuela?
No,
what do you think they negotiated? What did they do?
You're talking about trade deals, And
I'm not talking trade
right,
deals.
but the best thing to do is just eliminate our tariffs and bring them to zero. It doesn't matter what the rest of the world does. The best policy is free trade. Allow Americans to freely trade with anyone they want. There's nothing that needs to negotiate. But the speech that he made at the Economic Forum backfired. He went out there and claimed that the whole global economy only works because of America. That if it wasn't for America buying everything on credit that the world produces, that the world economy would collapse. As if, they would have nothing to do with all their factories if they weren't making the goods available to Americans. America does not drive the global economy. We're the caboose. We get pulled along. The power of the economy is production. It's the world can produce goods. It doesn't need us to consume those goods. They're perfectly capable of consuming their own goods.
It doesn't need us to consume those goods?
No.
Wow.
Of course not. Because
I'll give you 31
I am
trillion
so
reasons you're
glad.
wrong.
By the way, I am so glad we invited you today on the podcast. And by the way, Rob, did we invite or did Peter say he's in town to be here?
Well, you invited me before,
and then
I
you asked me to pay you for a private jet. I said, I'm not paying you for a private jet. I said, if you
So
want
I
to get
wait
down, you
till
come
I
down
come
here.
by myself.
No problem. But I am so glad you're here today. I'm so glad you're here today. And a market gets to hear you because you still can't find yourself to give credit to what this guy's done.
Well,
the
look,
last year and whatever he's
No,
doing.
it has nothing to do with, is the stuff he's done on the border good or bad? The bigger macro stuff overshadows it. And when we end up with a total socialist Democrat in 2028 because of how horrible the economy is, whatever good things were done are going to be erased by that. I mean, the bigger picture is much broader than some of the things that he's done that are good. And I've given him credit along the way for things that I thought he was right. But the bigger picture stuff, the more important stuff is so wrong. And again, for you to misunderstand
What's above security?
What's
above security and safety? I'm sorry.
How safe are we going to be?
What is above safety and security? 12 to 15 million people came here last 4 years.
Yeah,
you don't live in America.
Yes,
no, wait a minute. You don't live in America to know what that feels like. You live in Puerto Rico. What borders comes to Puerto Rico?
Part of America.
No, but it's not the same as living under the border.
It's not El
You
Paso.
don't know what the border is.
What do you mean? We're a Spanish country.
What border do you have? What border do you have?
We're an island, but I mean,
the average person sat in America last 4 years saying, "What the hell is going on to crime?"
All right,
and you can't sit there and say what happened to crime. There is nothing we do if we're not safe. Nothing. The brain doesn't work if it's not safe. If I can't breathe, I don't think about how the stock market is doing. If I can't have oxygen right now, I don't say, hey, I'm about to die. Can you tell me what Bitcoin's at? Where's gold at? Because I don't give a shit about oxygen. We're safe for the first time in many years. That's very important to the average American making $60,000, not to guys like us worth hundreds of millions of dollars. To us, we're going to be safe no matter what. For me, it's if the average guy doesn't feel safe, that's got a wife, husband, kids, that are willing to go out there and play in a regular public park, what the hell does America look like? I mean, you got to give a little bit of credit what this guy's done for America be this safe.
Well,
this is what the average person looks at first.
It's not about
and
where
then
he
comes
gets
everything else.
Look, if on the broader scheme of things, if I think the policies are wrong and we're headed for an economic crisis that are going to get blamed on the Republican Party, they're going to get blamed on capitalism, they're going to get blamed on everything that people believe that Trump stands for, but he doesn't. And the problems predate Trump. I mean, Trump was part of it when he was president during his first term, but we have been kicking the can down the road for multiple administrations of both parties. Everybody makes the problems worse, and everybody hopes that it doesn't collapse on their watch. Well, we're in very grave danger of it blowing up now under Trump's watch. And the things that he's done that are positive are going to disappear beneath that problem.
Why though? Why? So
because when you're looking at a massive collapse in the dollar and consumer prices soaring like we've never seen before in this country, when you're looking at widespread shortages and empty shelves and rolling blackouts because the dollar has collapsed and we can no longer afford to import all the goods that the rest of the world produces. And when there's an economic boom that's taking place outside the United States in the emerging markets because the world is no longer burdened with having to support the U.S. economy. when the world can now consume what it produces and invest
The
its
world is
savings
no longer
domestically instead of
Explain-
loaning it to us.
Explain to me why all these countries and companies said they're going to invest trillions of dollars in America.
They said that
Why
because
did-
Donald Trump wants to hear that.
but-
That's
no,
what
but-
they.
but-
That's what you
but
tell
wait a
Donald
minute.
Trump.
But
when
wait,
he's-
but wait a minute. How come we've never seen that before?
What do
How
you
co-
mean?
how co- no, no.
Never
This
seen
gets
what?
back to this gets back to the whole reversal of Main Street versus Wall Street, because when you think about it, what has been the losers versus winners since the China productivity miracle? What did we do? We sent jobs and factories to China. We brought consumer goods in here, right? We sent them the dollars. They take the dollars, they reinvest them in our markets, and that was the cycle, and that is broken down. I think part of why we're seeing these companies that are moving to invest, and there's a couple different CEO surveys have come out and said exactly what you said, Patrick, which is there's not only is it increasing, but the number of global CEOs looking to spend the biggest chunk of their global CapEx dollar in America. If you are going to reverse the trade flows of the last 50 years, you have to reverse the physical flows. In other words, you need to bring some of the capacity back here. You need to, and yes, that's inflationary, and that's just going to be part of the price of admission. Maybe some of that will be offset with productivity with AI. Who knows? I don't know. But ultimately, I think that it's a hugely bullish thing for the U.S. And I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing these companies say, all right, Trump came out and said the old deal's off. Like in every way, shape, or form, globalism's dead as it's been defined. We heard that over and over. Okay, then we're going to be more regionalist, and that means the United States is sort of in the position of Europe after World War II. Except we didn't get our factories bombed out; we got them shipped overseas
Exactly.
by a trade deal. What were growth rates in Europe after World War II from 1945 to
But look,
65? They
so-
exploded higher.
Why did this exporting of jobs going overseas? Who started it?
Nixon.
Clinton,
Gold standard.
Nixon. I mean, it was a 40-year trend, right? When you really tie back to what triggered it, once the United States went off the gold standard
I
in
agree.
71, it triggered a set of incentives that basically, once we made the
Money
dollar,
became fake.
yeah, once the dollar became the reserve currency
Right.
rather than gold, we suddenly had to run the deficits to supply the world the dollars. And to do that, we had to offshore this stuff to create the deficits to supply the dollars. And it sort of it sort of worked for a time. Nixon doing that, we weren't exactly winning the Cold War in 1971.
No.
And so when we did that, that was a huge trump card that Kissinger played. It was a case of, hey, the Soviets are beating us in a lot of ways. They've got way more oil, way more materials. But by playing that card and setting up the petrodollar, we were able to print dollars for oil and commodities, which is easier than lifting it out of the ground than the Soviets were doing. We win the Cold War. In a perfect world, when the Berlin Wall came down in 89, we would have sat down, had another monetary conference in 89, like a Bretton Woods, and said, okay, Berlin Wall comes down, and here's the new world order. We're going to meet, and we're going to say, here's what the monetary system's going to look like. Here's the new multinational organizations, or maybe we just continue them, right? The IMF, WTO, so whatever we were, UN, et cetera. But we didn't do that. Instead, in 89, we decided to pursue a unipolar moment in history, which is now clearly ending. And it's in our interest to end it, by the way, because it has hollowed us out too much in the direction.
We now are
This is the
completely
question I
dependent
got,
on
Peter.
that.
I'm sorry. Let me, and I'm going to come to you. My concern is the following. Okay, if I was in the White House when Nixon was, would we have gone off the gold standard? I don't know. Was that a good decision? I don't know. I'm 60% no, wasn't a good decision. 40% I don't know, right? The triangular diplomacy, did we kind of look at it and say, guys, Soviet, if these guys keep getting stronger, let's help China. China moved up, whatever. We helped them from number 10, number 11, number 9 to now number 2. And now Russia has got a smaller GDP than Canada. Canada's at 2.3. I think Russia's at 2.1. Some number like
Correct.
that. So we destroyed. I mean, essentially, we kind of brought them down and put them in their place. But then we built China. Now, finally, a guy comes in and is like, listen, guys, I'm sorry. All these deals you guys have had with the previous presidents, we got to shake things up. That's a massive shakeup. By the way, you know what's hard about that massive shakeup? You know what's the chance of succeeding? Do you know what's the chance of Trump succeeding with this massive shakeup?
It's not great. It's not. It's not.
Do you know what's your opinion? I'll write my number down.
well,
Hang on, I'll write my number down. I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
What do you think is the percentage of him being able to succeed?
Conceding that success might look different for you and me, this shift is so monumental. The shift of it going well, I would say it's under 50%.
I'm at 5%.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
It's very
to
hard.
do that. But you know what the problem is for me? So what do? Don't do it. Don't try.
Well,
don't
and it's what you always have to look at. What's the other side if we don't do it? Right?
That's
You
the
always
point.
want to. If we don't do it, we know where we're going. Right? Admiral Michael Mullen, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in 2011, has this fascinating quote. He said, "The biggest threat to America is not our debt. It's not weapons of mass destruction. It's not terrorism. It's not bioweapons. It is. Excuse me. It's not bioweapons. It's not terrorism. It's our debt." He said, "We are borrowing money from China to build weapons to face down China using components made in China." The U.S. military for the last 15 years has been saying as loudly as they could, we cannot source our own military without Chinese goods. You are not a sovereign nation. If you do not have a defense industrial base, you are not a sovereign nation. It simply hasn't been marked to market yet. And that started to be marked to market in COVID. Remember in COVID, we're like, oh, we need all this PPE and masks. And people look around and go, oh, it's all made in China. And then in 2022, same kind of dynamic. The head of the UN came out of NATO, Mark Rutte, came out in 2025, early last year, said the Russians, with their small GDP, are outproducing the entirety of NATO, including America, 4-1. Why? Because they have an industrial base and we do not have a sufficient industrial base. And so this is one of these national security questions.
This is last year.
What's that?
Yeah. This is last year.
He said it last year.
Yeah, they got a little bit of a labor manufacturing balance because of the 5-year Ukraine war, too.
Yeah. Oh, and
you can't measure their percent of investment on defense right now because they have a hot conflict.
No. This isn't percentage goods. This is total goods. How many do the Russians produce? How many do the Americans produce? The Russians outproduce 4 more times of stuff, absolute numbers, than the U.S. And the U.S. can't produce it, and we can't produce it without the Chinese. So part of what we're watching Trump, I think the why is so important anytime you're watching anyone do anything, especially a Donald Trump. And I think Donald Trump's why in doing this is the U.S. military's why in doing this, which is if we go down this path, the Chinese will make 100% of the U.S. military in 10 years, in 5 years. And at that point, the United States is no longer a sovereign country. Full stop. End of discussion. What do you hear so often when people say, well, ultimately, the U.S. military backs the dollar? Well, if the Chinese make the military that backs the dollar, what do we have? We have zero.
Yeah, you have to recognize, though, the fact that we relied on the dollar's reserve currency status for decades, that allowed us to hollow out our manufacturing base and supplant it with this service sector, consumer credit-based economy that is harmful, but we've been living beyond our means for decades as a result of this. And yes, the sooner it ends, the better, because the longer it takes, the worse it's going to be when we have to be confronted by reality. But that is what is about to happen, not on our terms, on the world's terms. They are going to move away from the U.S. dollar. It's not going to be the reserve currency. And so all of these, what you look at as virtuous things are going to reverse. But the only way that we can prepare for a world where the dollar is no longer the reserve currency and we cannot live beyond our means is to start now dramatically shrinking the size of our government, which is incompatible with the economy that we need to build. We need massive cuts to government spending. Instead, we've had increase in government spending. We need dramatic increases in personal savings, which means we need much higher interest rates to encourage that so we can finance the investment. And we actually need to get a handle on our debt. I think we need to restructure it. I think we actually need a organized default because we now have so much debt that we have built up that if interest rates were allowed to rise to a level that would actually encourage savings, the government would have to default anyway. There is no way that we could service the debt that we have at the interest rates that we need and that we will have in a post-U.S. dollar reserve currency world. Because if Americans can only borrow to the extent that we save, we have very little savings, and everybody has massive debt. So we have to have very high interest rates in this country, but we can't afford them. And also, you can't build products from strip malls. We have a country that is built now to distribute imports. Our biggest employers are like FedEx and UPS and Walmart and Amazon, right? We don't build the stuff that we transport and that we consume. And to do that is going to require significant investment in building factories and reconstituting supply chains, in training workers. This is a monumental task. And everything we're doing right now is in the wrong direction.
I got it. Okay, Rob, do you want to pull up the news that just came up with El Paso, why the reason took place? Did you guys see this or no?
No.
Did you get an alert? Apparently, El Paso, the reason why they shut down the airport was because there were drones flown over, cartel drones, and allegedly for that, Skies Ryan International Airport would close several hours Wednesday. Go a little bit lower, Rob. The FAA on Wednesday morning abruptly closed temporarily. There's no threat to commercial aviation. The agency said in a statement all flights will resume as normal. New York Times Wednesday reported that the shutdown was due to military testing of uncrewed aircraft technology at Fort Bliss. Moments later, U.S. Transportation Sean Duffy acted swiftly to address a cartel drone insertion, adding that the threat has been neutralized. Speaking at a news press conference Wednesday, reporter Veronica Escobar, who represents El Paso in the U.S. representative, said Duffy's explanation does not align with the information that we in Congress have been told. Mexican President Sheinbaum has disputed the reason for shutdown, saying the country's government has no knowledge of such insurgent per the time. So that's kind of the reports of both sides. We still don't have a clue what the hell is going on. Okay, Army seems to be fretting about their flights tomorrow. Okay, there you go. So that's somebody just texted me saying that just happened. When we set out to create a shoe that blends comfort, function, and luxury, we had the choice to make it fast. We had the choice to make it cheap. We chose neither. Instead, we chose Tuscany, Italy. We chose true Italian craftsmanship, each pair touched by 50 skilled hands. We chose patience, spending 2 years perfecting every detail, and we chose the finest quality at every step. Introducing the Future Looks Bright collection. Not rushed, not disposable, not ordinary. Rather, intentional, luxurious, timeless. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.